We are back. He's Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis, hanging out with you on this lovely Monday as we get you set for the Eagles and the Buccaneers. And man, just a lot going on with the Eagles. So, Tone, you'll have to let me know when Dave is ready to go because I can't see him in the setup. But there's Dave. Boom. Ask and you shall receive. There he is, Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philadelphia. Dave, what's up, my friend? How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Good to see
How's
you,
the
man.
weather in Tampa, buddy?
Hot. Yeah, it's a warm one.
Is that going to be a thing tonight? Is that something to keep your eye on?
It'll drop a little bit, I think, but yeah, it's going to be warmer than a typical late September game in Philly. So it's something to watch, like if guys start cramping up or that sort of thing.
Okay.
Hey, did you get to go to Burns Steakhouse?
Didn't go there. I went to Frenchie's last night. Got a grouper sandwich.
Good that place is great. Oh,
Good move, Dave. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
That's a
that's a must do when I'm down here.
Yeah. Can't go wrong there. That's for sure. Dave, you had a great Eagles notebook today at NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. I love some of the stuff. And I want to start with this one, okay? We've heard a ton of unscouted looks. That's been a big sort of buzz phrase, if you will, thus far. So how much are you buying into that, hey, look, they're going to get things they didn't get last year and they have to be able to figure this part of it out? And how much of it is they just need to execute better, quite frankly?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. And it's always tough to say, all right, this percentage is you tip your cap and this percentage is they need to be better. They clearly need to be better, right? As a passing offense, they haven't been in rhythm. But you won against Bill Belichick in week 1. He's pretty good. He's done this for a long time. Brian Flores last week, just threw everything at them and was willing to get run all over in order to not let them beat him through the air. So it was just a strange game plan from Flores last week. And it kind of worked, but they didn't win the game. So it didn't. I don't know how they view that one. They're going to keep getting this. Teams are going to keep trying to do things to try to confuse them. But there's only so much you can do. There's only so many combinations of this stuff. And the more they see it, the quicker the response time becomes. If you see a team is doing something against you, all right, this is what happened in week 3. This is our fix for that. And then it's the chess game back and forth a little bit. It's funny because Brian Johnson among fans right now, fans think he's not doing a good job. The Eagles think he is. And they look at his adjustments in game. They look at week 1. They started feeding the ball to A.J. Brown a lot. That was how they got their offense going. And then in week 2, it was obviously the run game. He ran basically the same play 15 times. And the Eagles were impressed by that, his ability to stick with that. And it worked. It got them the win. I think we all realize the passing offense needs to be better. No one's saying everything is fine because it's not. They need to be better. Jalen Hurts needs to be better. But there's some wacky stuff that happens in the first 2 weeks of the season. And if you come out with 2 wins, you feel pretty good about it.
Hey, Dave, when I'm looking at your matchup notes for tonight on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com, the first one that jumps out at me is your very first one, Jalen Hurts versus Todd Bowles. And I'm thinking the same thing, especially in hindsight of over the weekend, that video goes viral of Kevin Ross back in January of 2022. He can't read. And then Jalen's asked about it at his press conference last week. And Jalen is as surreal as anybody's going to be, especially for that age. And he ends his statement by saying, sometimes motivation is good. Do you think he's holding that personal chip on his shoulder going in this game tonight?
Yeah. I mean, the guy's idol is Michael Jordan, who took everything in his life as a slight.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jalen takes it to that extent, but yeah, he'll use whatever he can. Even if it's not there sometimes.
Yeah.
That's what the great ones do, So I think there's part of him that wants to come down here and prove he's not the same guy. He's clearly not the same guy he was then.
Right.
He has an MVP runner-up season in between that. But that was the game where, we watched that and went, ooh, I don't know if this is the guy. And I don't think that was an overreaction at the time. That was a bad game. It was the biggest stage of his career in the NFL at that point. And he didn't perform well. The offense didn't look good. And it was fair at that point to wonder what his future was going to hold. So he's grown immensely since then, but this is still a tough defense. And Todd Bowles has been doing this for a long time. And we kind of know what to expect from him. They're going to heat him up a little bit, or they're going to try to heat him up as much as they can. And they have a really good defense. You know, for all the talk about these two teams are so different from that 21 matchup, I mean, that Tampa Bay defense has a lot of the same guys, and they still run the same scheme. Like, it's not that different, and it's still a good challenge.
Dave, who returns kicks tonight? No, we know no Boston Scott. We know he's out. We also know, obviously the big news with he and Quez are out. But who returns kicks, do you think?
They have a few options. Rashad Penny has done it. He's on the roster, obviously. Yep. We could see a game day elevation do it. But like if you're looking at the guys on the roster, Penny can do it. It's barely even a play anymore.
Yeah, I know. You could fair catch and have anybody back there, honestly.
Yeah, pretty much. And with this offense, like that's what I would do.
Yep.
This is supposed to be a really good offense. Why would you limit them by not returning it to the 25 or by returning it and getting a penalty that backs you up to like the 10-yard line? I just don't know if the risk is worth the reward anymore with that play.
Yeah, makes sense.
Dave, when we look at Zacchaeus, basically he hasn't been heard from much in the first two games. Number one, why do you think that is, considering how pedestrian the offense has been, and especially based on what you just said, Brian Johnson making the necessary adjustments along the way? Why do you think he hasn't been more of a factor in the overall offense?
Yeah, he hasn't been targeted yet. But like even Quez, who is ahead of him, has been targeted twice.
Yeah.
So it's not, there's just the passing offense hasn't been cooking. So it's like if you don't have AJ Brown going, you're probably not getting Olamide Zacchaeus going. And that's not a slight on him. It's just there's a pecking order of this offense. And if you're not getting Dallas Goedert going, you're not trying to get balls to Olamide either. So that's part of it. He's behind Quez in the depth chart. So tonight he will be the slot receiver. We'll see. And also they were such heavy 12 personnel in that game against the Vikings because they realized they could run the football that, they weren't even in 11 that much. So like Quez wasn't out there as much as he normally is. So I think there's a chance for him to play a little bit tonight. He's a different type of receiver, obviously, than Quez, who has the game-breaking speed. OZ does have speed. It's not like he's some shifty little, 7-yard to catch guy. He can catch the ball downfield, but he does bring a little more change of direction in the middle of the field. And I'm curious to see how he fits in.
Dave, let me ask you, there's multiple Jordan Schultz among them, but other people reporting that Bradbury's going to play in the slot tonight and essentially follow around Chris Godwin. A, do you think that's the right move for them? And B, what other defensive adjustments would you like to see them make? Not that they've been getting torched, but you kind of expected some of it with the injuries that you had against Minnesota. What do you expect defensively? First, let's start with the Bradbury thing. Yeah,
I think it's very matchup driven, like when they use him in there. And I don't know if that's going to be just what they do going forward, because I don't want to say you waste Bradbury inside, but you didn't pay him $38 million over 3 years to be a slot corner.
That's right.
You paid him to play outside. But in this matchup, they have two receivers really with Godwin and Evans that can play inside. And there's no reason why the Bucs wouldn't play them inside in this game, particularly with Avonte Maddox out. So I think that does make sense from a matchup perspective this week, but they have some other options. I think in other games, Goodrich will be in there.
Yep.
That's why you have him on the roster, right? He's the backup nickel for a reason, but they also have, they can run big nickel and put a safety out there, whether it's Justin Evans or my personal pick here would be Sidney Brown. This is a way to get the rookie on the field in some spots that I think would make sense for him. He wouldn't have to just be a starting safety, but it's a way to find the field for him, because I'm trying to find ways to get this kid on the field. If I'm the Eagles, you think he's the future and you're playing kind of journeyman backup types. And I don't really understand it. If I were the Eagles, I would play Sidney Brown and let him take his lumps and get better. But this would be a way if you play him in the slot here and there. And I think it will be a mixture throughout the rest of the season, and they'll see how it goes. The nice thing about the Avonte injury, and there aren't many nice things, it's a big loss, but it does come so early that You can see what you have, and there's still plenty of time before the trade deadline. So you see how this works. You try out a few different options, and if it's not there, then you can make a move.
Hey, Dave, I think I know your answer. But Blankenship is back, but who should be the starting safety opposite him?
Who should be or who will be?
Both.
Okay. I think it will be Justin Evans.
Okay.
He's just been ahead since the middle of training camp, which was always kind of strange. This was not their plan. I know they said they were just running the plan, and in day 13, they were going to get Justin Evans some first team reps, which is not how any team has ever done this in the history of the NFL. Like, that's just not how you do it. So I think it will be Justin Evans. I would maybe do a little bit of a rotation, and we've seen that at times, getting Edmonds out there, who I think has played okay. But like I said, I would find ways to get Sidney Brown on the field. And even if that's as a third safety, when you run the big nickel, even if that's rotating in at times in certain packages, I think he's too talented to keep off the field. And if he's the future, what are you waiting for? I can't imagine that these other guys are that much better than him. I think they probably trust them more because they're veterans. They've done it. And I get all that, but maybe I'm just selfishly wanting to see him play.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think we all want to see him play. I want to stick with the defense for a minute because they're facing Baker Mayfield, who's playing good football. It's 2 games, small sampling, get it. But he's not turning it over. He's only been sacked one. I don't love their offensive line, but so far they've held up pretty well, Dave. We know this Eagles defensive line has played well. The interior's played well, Sweat's playing well, et cetera. I think this is where the Eagles really could win this game here. But what is your sense of the Eagles D-line versus Tampa's O-line?
Yeah, I think they can win this game, but they're going to have to be patient because the ball's going to be coming out of his hand pretty quickly. It's not like this O-line has just been lights out. It's all working in unison. But I give him credit, man. He's been so efficient this year. He's like 87% on third downs. He's doing everything he needs to do. I've been impressed. And it's not like he was an awful quarterback before in his career. He's had spurts like this. He's just never been able to do it consistently. So I think at a certain point, it's going to drop off this level of play. But, yeah, give him credit for now. The Eagles' D-line, I think, has a chance to do some damage in this game. Really curious about that Josh Sweat, Tristan Wirfs matchup. Because it's going to be one-on-one, and Wirfs is one of the best in the business. But Josh Sweat might be too. I mean, he's really good. He was their best pass rusher all training camp, and he's carried it over. So looking forward to that matchup. I think Hassan Reddick on the other side against Luke Goedeke has a chance to get home. Reddick's been dealing with that thumb injury, but he also got off to a slow start last year, went sackless in his first 2 games healthy last year. So he did it again this year, but he still had 16 in 2022. So I think he's going to get cooking soon. And then the interior, it's really impressive what they've been able to do after losing Javon Hargrave, who's one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles in the league. I mean, Fletcher Cox looks like he's 26 years old again. Jordan Davis is a different player. Jalen Carter is everything is advertised. And Milton Williams doesn't get any love, but he's just the most consistent dude in the world, and he gives them great snaps. That's really been the strength of the team so far.
Dave, when you look at week 3 across the board in the NFL, and I referred to it earlier today to Rob, is embarrassing week 3 because there has been a riches of embarrassments. I mean, from Houston and Jacksonville to Denver giving up 70 points, the Saints blowing a 17 fourth quarter lead. What are some of the unknown commodities as we sit here right now and you think about it that we should be looking for in this game tonight?
Yeah, it's funny. Week 3, man. Like the Cowboys losing to the Cardinals. What in the world is going on here?
Oh my goodness!
I missed the. It was funny. I got the Frenchies yesterday in the afternoon in time to see the end of that Dolphins game, and I walk up and I didn't have my glasses on, and I'm like, I must not be reading that right. It's 70. Yeah. So tonight, I get it's tough to say because we're talking about things that we can't see ahead. I don't know. I think there's a chance. Here's what I do know. I don't think there's going to be much running the football from Tampa.
Right.
They
ran it a little last week, none the week before.
Yeah, they really don't have much of a run game. So that's where the Eagles want you to be anyway. They want you to be one-dimensional. So the Bucs haven't turned the football over yet. The Eagles have 6 takeaways. Something's got to give there.
Yeah.
And if I had to pick, I think there's a better chance the Bucs finally cough one up, because the Eagles just have the ability to put more pressure on you than the Bears or the Vikings did when the Bucs faced them. So that's the one thing, if you're looking at the Bucs have been so efficient offensively, I think there's a chance the Eagles can get to them and change that.
Dave, two things on Braden Mann taking over as the punter. Obviously we're going to be curious how he looks from a punting standpoint. Is he a boomer or is he a coffin corner type? And the other thing is, one thing Sipos did very, very well was hold for Jake Elliott, which is not a little thing here. Is that something you're going to be curious to see how that looks as well?
Yeah, as far as him as a punter, I think he's like a modest upgrade over Sipos, but you'd take any upgrade. Sipos was one of the worst punters in the league statistically through 2 weeks. There's a reason they made the switch, right? Mann's interesting because he was a really highly touted prospect coming out of A&M, and he kind of hasn't lived up to that. He's been okay.
He was the Ray Guy Award winner.
Yeah, he was really good. He was a draft pick. He was a 6th-round pick. Like, you don't see a ton of punters get drafted. So I don't think he's lived up to that, but I think he is better than Sipos. And then, the holder stuff, it is an important job. But I think they'll be okay. Like, Elliott was fine in the preseason when Ty Zettner was holding for him, and I know the team was very impressed by Jake's ability to kick with either guy holding for him. I did talk to Braden Mann about that, and he said that it's something he does take very seriously. He's actually held for Jake Elliott before in the offseason. Like, all these kickers and punters just know each other. So he has held for him before, and they had this many bye weeks, so I'm not too concerned about that.
Dave, I want to go back to something you said a few moments ago, and I thought it was interesting. You said that people on the outside looking in are not happy with the way Brian Johnson has been calling the games. You said on the inside out, the Eagles are happy with him. From your observations as one who's there at practices, covers all the games, how would you grade the way, from your perspective, what you've seen of Brian Johnson?
Yeah, I think he's been okay. I don't think he's been great. I think he's, there are certain things that the offense is looking wonky, and it's tough to assign blame for, because sometimes you tip your cap, sometimes the quarterback isn't playing well, and sometimes it is on the play caller. Sometimes, when the offense looks out of rhythm, that's when I want to say maybe that's the play caller a little bit, because it's your job to get these guys in a rhythm. It's your job to try to get passes to go to spread around a little bit, but ultimately, like, the quarterback is the guy on the field making it happen. So it's tough to divvy up the pie. I think he's done okay. And the reason the Eagles like him so much is because he's shown the ability to adjust on the fly. In week 1, I thought it took a little too long, honestly. In week 2, I do give him credit for that more. I mean, that's a tough thing to do as a play caller, to just keep running the football, because there's this tendency to break off of it and to try to set up the pass with the run at that point, because, like, all right, we've run this inside zone play like 7 times. Maybe now I can get them. And he just held off, and he did what worked. And I don't think that can be the recipe every week. I think that this offense is not built around that alone. Like, obviously they can run the football. They have a great offensive line, but you also have a quarterback he just paid $255 million, 2 number 1 receivers, and a top 5 tight ends. So that's not how you draw it up before the season. You have to start passing the football at some point. But for a 1-game thing, I was fine with it. It got them a tough win.
Dave, let me ask you the same question Gunnar asked you, but I'll jump over to Sean Desai. From what you've seen, how different has it looked from Jonathan Gannon? What have you liked that he's incorporated? I know it's only 2 games. I get it. But, like, from what you've seen thus far, is there a big difference in your estimation? What has kind of caught your eye a little bit?
I have liked what he's done, and it's kind of what I expected coming into the season. I don't think the numbers by the end of the year are going to look as good as Gannon's defense did in 2022, but I don't think he has the same talent across the board that Gannon had, especially in the back end. They had some decent safety play last year. They had obviously they had CJ Gardner-Johnson, which helped out quite a bit. Right. The linebackers were better last year. So I think there's a little bit of a learning curve, but I think Desai is going to get more out of these guys. I've been impressed by his creativity. We've seen some interesting looks that I like quite a bit, and I think we're going to continue to see those on the back end and up front. I mean, they've been moving their pieces around on that line. They've been keeping teams guessing a little bit. And then on the back end, like we have seen some free safeties. Just the thought of putting Bradbury in the nickel is something that like I wouldn't have thought of that. Honestly, I really thought of him as he's kind of a longer.
I thought he'd follow Mike Evans around tonight, Dave.
Like from a body size perspective, that probably makes more sense. So we'll see how that goes.
Right.
Schley is obviously the faster of the two, but he does kind of think outside the box a little bit, and I've liked what I've seen so far.
You know, based on a one-game performance, do you think that DeAndre Swift is basically bogarted all the other running backs in terms of significant touches in the backfield?
I think he should be the top guy, but I don't think it's going to be this wide disparity.
Yeah.
And part of it is because that was an outlier in his career. No one's going to get the ball carried 28 times a game anymore, but like he's done that one other time in his career, and it was a full-length overtime game. So I don't think he can do that week to week, and I still think if nothing else, Kenny Gainwell is going to have 4-minute and 2-minute drives because they trust him in those situations. He's better in pass protection, which is a big part of being on the field in those moments. And he's a really smart player. They trust him to either, get out of bounds or get back to, like, they trust him to do all that stuff. So I think it's still going to be a mixture, but I mean, based on what we saw last week, how do you keep DeAndre Swift off the field if he's running like that?
Yep.
He needs his touches, and he can't get 2 like he got in week 1 anymore.
Dave, what do you think, man? What are you looking at prediction wise here in this one?
Yeah, I picked the Eagles. I think I went 28-23.
Okay.
Don't hold me to that. It's written down somewhere. I think I went 28-23. I think it has the potential to be a close game. I think the Eagles are the better team, and that's why I picked them. Sometimes I try not to overthink this, but we'll see. It's not an easy matchup. It really isn't.
All right, Dave, listen, buddy.
Dave.
Yeah, go ahead, Derek.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, Dave, we appreciate it, man. And we'll check out all your work, NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. Keep up the good work. Enjoy. We got some rainy weather here, brother, so enjoy it there where you're at.
I will. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Dave.
Yeah.
Thanks, pal. Yeah. What do you think about that, Gunner? I would have. I'm just saying right now, this is obviously not a second guess. I would prefer Bradbury on Evans. Again, if they're making this move to the slot, like some people are reporting.
I couldn't agree with you more. You got to match body length against body length. And let's face it, no matter who you put on him, he is a nightmare to cover. He is not the fastest guy out there, but he can leap, very athletic, very acrobatic. I'm not saying he's slow because I've seen him time and time again run away from coverage, but he's not like the just lights out quickest guy out there. But in terms of just trying to match up with him and him generating so many pass interference calls because he frustrates DBs so much, I think your best option is to put Bradbury on him. And that's why I think it's a mistake if you put Bradbury in a slot. Even if you don't put Bradbury on him directly, I would still have Bradbury on the outside, not on the inside, and put Job on the outside. Because whoever Tampa Bay counters with on the outside, they're going to test Job. You know? And his head's going to be swimming. He's under the bright lights of Monday night. He's got to be thinking about some of the things he did not do the last game, and that stuff comes back into play, and you become too cautious, you think too much, and that's where you get in trouble. And I think when you put a guy who is a little bit more inexperienced in the slot, you have enough traffic in the middle that can help you sometimes. But when you're on that island by yourself, in most cases one-on-one, that's when you can get exposed.
Yeah.
And if Tampa starts to have a measure of success on his side, Job on the outside, they're going to keep going to it. Why wouldn't they?
100%. Just like the Eagles did with the running game last week.
Exactly.
You keep pounding it till they stop you. You keep going, man.
I mean, there's no question about it. That's what offenses do in the National Football League. If you have a weakness, we will find it. And we will continue to attack it and force you to adjust. And when you adjust, we will counter your adjustment with something else.
Absolutely.
That's one of the scariest things about a matchup like this. Tampa Bay is not a juggernaut when it comes to offensive prowess or talent, but they do have enough talent on that offense to do some damage.
No, I agree. Look, to me, I give Tampa tons of credit for winning at Minnesota to start the year. Because at that point we didn't know quite what Minnesota was. Now Minnesota's 0-3.
Right.
I can't get real worked up about anything that happens against the Bears. The Bears are an embarrassment. Okay. So to me, it's kind of like, I mean, let's face it, they're 2 wins come against 2 0-6 teams, right? So are we getting crazy over that? Probably not, thus far. But nonetheless, I mean, to me, the Eagles' path has been harder. When you go to New England and beat Belichick, that's a hard thing, right? The Vikings, again, I'm not going to go crazy over it, but it was 4 days later and you were pretty banged up. So I think the road has been harder. I don't think either has played any killers yet. Let's put it to you that way.
Yeah.
So we'll get more into the Eagles Bucks matchup. When we come back, let's look at the NFC East and poor Cowboys. They lost yesterday. I feel so bad.
No, stop gloating. Stop it.
And by the way, the Gandwagon is back. Yes.
What?
The Gandwagon. I saw it. I looked out the window and I saw it kind of cruising by. It was picking up some steam as it was going uphill, but it was picking up some steam. So we'll do that. We'll take a look. The Commanders got their doors. If it wasn't for what Miami did to Denver, we'd be looking at that Commanders game because I'll give you some stats from that one that are going to blow your mind. And of course, Thursday night, the Giants lost. Was not a great week for the NFC East. So we'll cover all of that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's D Gunn. He's coming to you from Ocean. I am Rob Ellis, getting you set for the Eagles and the Bucks Monday Night Football. All right, let me tell you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances is a very, very challenging thing. You want to make sure you get that right. That's for sure. I can tell you from personal experience that someone I trust with my finances is Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review. You might have a small business and you try to get your employee benefits off the ground. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers with Jim, and it was the absolute best thing that I ever did financially. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You could also email him as well, Murray, Murray.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim@principal.com.